downstairs.
Oh, hey.
It's exhibit. What's up, Larry? How you doing, man?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to be here. Good to have this coming together.
So this really was a trip down memory lane for you, but the last time we were here was for the Gymkhana 1 release. Can you believe that?
That was a while back.
That was.
Yeah, and I think that was just downstairs.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That was such an epic event where this happened, where both of us were like, oh, buddy.
That was one of the wildest moments that I think we have ever had filming. That's like one of the few times that Ken got out of the car and was like, I hope someone got that because I'm not doing that again. Like, I remember him saying that, and like, Ken didn't really ever have fear in his eyes, but that moment was like he saw some shit.
Yeah, but we were all really ecstatic too. We were really happy. We knew that it was it. That was it.
It's one of those things that on a Gymkhana film, you know, after doing however many of them, you know when you have the shot. And the first attempt of 2 of that was like, it was weak. Like, it was a whatever, like he just kind of tested it out. And in your brain, you're like, all right, he'll work his way up. He'll do 1 step, a 2nd step, a 3rd step. No way. Dude, it went from weak to like, oh my God, we might as well just stop filming now. Everything, like that's done, that's it. And then you got the still, like, oh God, what a feeling.
It was so good. Yeah, let's talk about your history and then we'll kind of dive into each part. We'll go through stories because I've had a chance to film with so many people surrounding Ken, but I don't know if I've ever really filmed with you.
Yeah, we just talk about it like in person.
Well, because you and I, we spent the most time together. Yeah. I feel like we were both in the trenches together because while I was helping to shoot Ken, you were glued to him.
Yeah.
You shot everything with him. And I was just in addition to what you were doing.
You're the big guns.
I mean, I guess. But that was the beauty of it, right? Yeah. There was room for more creatives. There was always extra shooters,
every time.
No matter what, because we all had different eyes. We all had different goals.
Yep.
So, like, tell me about what you did with Ken.
Yeah, so I first started working with Ken. I first met him at the end of 2009. And then pretty much January 2010 was when I started working with him. The first event I ever did with Ken was WRC Turkey in 2010. I went there to just feel the team out, meet everybody, meet Ken, meet Derek, see if I vibe with it. And right off the bat, we started working together. If you could believe it, kind of dating myself, but you lived this era too. You know, I came from car magazines. That's how I met Brian Scotto, and that's how I got in this whole circle of things. Magazines were dying off, and the blog era was super heavy. So we had a blog for Ken, monsterworldrallyteam.com. And my job coming on was to organize people's photos, write the blog post, and essentially tell the day-to-day story of what Ken was doing. I started his Facebook page. Facebook was like, Ken's like, that's cool as long as it doesn't get in the way of the blog. Like, blog was king back then, you know? And so I started out by meeting photographers, meeting creators, and being like, hey, were you on the side of this stage? Oh, sick, you got this photo. Okay, I'm gonna throw it on the blog. And as those first couple months happened, I realized that I wouldn't have to wait for somebody to process their photos, to find the right guy, to do the right thing. I could just capture it myself. Now, mind you, I had no idea what I was doing with a camera. I went to school for writing. And journalism. So I picked up a camera and I just shot what I wanted to see from cars, right? Like, I always loved rally, I always liked rally cars. And that's kind of how this whole like embedded photojournalist thing happened. But at the same time, I was helping write the Facebook posts, think through product ads, and then I'm in the same room as planning, you know, as Ken planning Gymkhana films. All that, you just all kind of become this like one hive mind. So that kind of evolved how I work with Ken.
I love the story so much. You can tell this better. Scotto always told me that, yeah, the first time we went to this event and he threw you a camera, or you had a camera, he yelled some settings to you.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. That was WRC Turkey, and I could send you the photo. I still have it. Dude, okay, so I'm this kid, loves rally, whatever, like, I'm a no one, you know? I was watching this stuff on Speed Channel, you know, like a couple months prior, and now I'm here, I'm in it. We're running towards the stage. You can hear the car in the background, and Scotto's like, here's a camera, it was a Canon 20D, and he's like, just don't freeze the action, but you don't want to be blurry either, so start at 200, and work your way down from there. And I'm like, 200, and I just start flicking around settings, whatever. I hear the car coming, I see it coming towards me. It flies by, the car jumped, and I looked at the back of this camera. And like, dude, that feeling, I can't describe it. Like I caught that moment, you know? And from then on, I was like, wow, I want to get as good as I can at this. Because then I took it back to Ken, and Ken was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And dude, to get that out of Ken at the time was like, oh, yeah, bro, Ken said it was cool. Ken said, hey, did you know Ken said one of my photos is cool? Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no big deal. So, yeah, that kind of started that whole feeling.
For me, being a photographer, that honestly was the ultimate validation. I'll never, ever forget this. The moment that things really changed for me, especially my relationship with Ken, working with Ken, was during driver introductions at GRC.
Okay.
I forgot what round, but you know, it's like, oh, we got Tanner Fowles, Ken Block, whatever. They're all standing in front of their cars. He steps out of, like, he steps away from his car during the introductions to tell me how much he liked the shots that I got of him when he was drifting Irwindale.
Yes.
Remember?
Yeah, in the 2012 car.
Yeah, so he wanted to do full course drifting with an all-wheel drive car, like a rally car, that wasn't meant to drift. And he connected the entire Irwindale course. And I kind of snuck this article because I wasn't supposed to be there. I just happened to be there because it was the same time as Formula Drift. So then I just kind of asked, I was like, hey, can I shoot some photos? Like, can I do a story on what you guys are doing? And everybody was okay with it. I ended up doing this article and
on
talking.
Speed Hunters.
Yeah, on Speed Hunters.
Yeah.
He read the article and he was stoked on the pictures and stoked on the article. And yeah, he stepped out of line to tell me. And it was literally in front of the entire GRC field, in front of all the other photographers, in front of the peers, in front of the staff. Like, it was that evident. And, you know, we just had that conversation in front of everybody. And it just, wow, it really just changed so much for me, you know, because to get that public validation was so cool.
And I wonder if that gave you the same feeling it gave me of, like, you know, Ken's this larger than life guy. The first time you see him, the first couple times you talk to him, you're like, whoa, this dude's kind of a big deal. And then you have a moment like that and you meet Ken the human and you're like, oh man, like, oh, he's like a really cool guy.
It's funny because that interaction, I've said this story before, but like that interaction pretty much happened to me on the set of Gymkhana 4.
Yeah.
When I first got onto set and I was shooting with him, he asked me this question that I was just so blown away. He asked me, so do you watch our videos? Like, do you like our videos? Do you enjoy watching these things that we do? Just wondering, you know, being humble, assuming that I'm just some photographer that came to capture this stuff that I don't actually know what he's doing. I was like so blown away because I was like, I love what you do so much. Like, I'm so happy.
Are you kidding me? I've seen all of it.
Exactly.
That shoot was where we met. So it was you and Lindbergh, and you guys were giving me camera tips, and I was like, man, this is Larry Chen from Speed Hunters? Oh my God, you were a legend already in your own right. You know, and that whole come up of, you know, from drift photos to doing stuff on that level, like, you guys were already, you had a name. I was on set at Gymkhana Films. I was shooting the marketing, the lead up, the teasers, product photos, all things like that. And, you know, alluding to what you said earlier, when we were building these teams for each Gymkhana shoot, it was like, okay, we're gonna bring in a guy like Mike Blayback, who is gonna get like the epic scene. You know, he's a legendary skate photographer, so we have some of his stuff up here. And then we'll get like a traditional motorsports photographer. And then eventually it became, well, we got to bring Larry because Larry gets everything, every moment. Larry's 3 places at once. So we know if something happens, Larry's going to get it. And so that was that mix. That was that formula we always had that we built into every Gymkhana film.
To be honest with you, around that time period in my life, that really was the highlight for me. So being able to push my absolute physical limit and also what's possible with car photography.
Yeah.
It allowed us to make these normal, everyday places extraordinary.
Yeah.
We're talking about places that now I drive by casually all the time, every day. You know, no matter where we are in the world, I think to myself like, yeah, at one point in time,
710
I was here.
Yeah.
I was on this spot in the middle of the street where rush hour traffic is happening right now, and we're shooting the craziest stuff, which is just so cool.
And leveling up every time, you know, like when the content leveled up, you would have to bring your A game to the next shoot. And I remember that. I remember looking at your stuff from Gymkhana 8. And anytime I would start putting together these marketing plans, you know, I take in the couple thousand photos and videos that we would get from everybody. We make our selects. What's a poster? What's the teaser shot? What's going to be the Facebook cover? What's going out exclusive to Monster? Everywhere we had to have these photos go. And every time I was like, damn, Larry really leveled up on that one. Or, wow, like that remote cam, your remote cam stuff in the early days was crazy.
I think really that goes to show that everything was important on our side, capturing this stuff, but then on the backside, everything gets used.
Yes.
And everything is important in terms of, like you said, who gets what for what purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's super cool.
The folders that I would be building out for the marketing like rollout. I mean, realize these marketing rollouts would last really 3 months based around the launch of a film. You got your lead up, you got your film launch, and then you got the post. I mean, you would have, you know, the LA Times hitting you up, Pikes Peak, every single partner you see on the car, everybody wants content, and that's what we were able to give them.
Let's just take a tour of this exhibit. This is for individuals that can't make it to this, but I urge anybody, if you can make it to LA, if you can make it to this exhibit, how long is this going for, do you know?
Till October 5th.
Okay, so if you can come to this ultimate car culture destination, I tell everybody, if you want to do anything with car culture and you're in LA, you have to come to the Petersen Museum and you have to see this in person, because a lot of this stuff, especially the memorabilia, there's no other way to see it. You know, it's stored away, it's at Blockhouse Racing in Utah, and it's away from the public eyes. A lot of this stuff is just so historic to what Ken's done. You know, we've both been so lucky to be a part of it. So yeah, come and check it out in person, see these cars in person, you won't be disappointed.
So this collection of cars, as it sits here, this hasn't ever been together in one place like this, not even at the headquarters. Because realize some of these cars are different owners, different people. This may be one of the last times that you have all these cars that you could see in person.
Yeah, this one just sold, right?
This one just sold. Audi of Germany owns the Hunatron. This one the family owns. The Huna Pig, you know, that's a Hoonigan car. The RS200 is a private owner. So we worked so hard over the last 2 months, myself, Scotto, a lot of people behind the scenes, to put this together and to tell a story in a way of like experiencing it in person and seeing these cars. So if you could make it out, we would super appreciate it. So on the back walls, you know, we chose, and again, this is the hardest thing to do. When you have so many crazy epic moments, so many bangers. Look at the quality of this Larry photo, by the way. My favorite thing that you could see on this, the GoPro on a stick. I love that. I love that you could see the
And then there's still one there.
And there's one there
I bet
too.
you that one gets yeeted right after.
That's in the film. Oh yeah, that thing got sent down the hill. Some intern had to go grab that thing. But, you know, when we're putting this thing together, it's like, not only is it the most epic photo, it's like, how much of a story can you tell? So you have Gymkhana, Pikes Peak, Ken's most well-known car in one of the most well-known events on the planet. Then you have Ken's heart and soul, which was Stage Rally. This is from Rally du Valais. and a Kazi V2, a vintage Group A car that Ken kind of upgraded, made a custom kit for.
Collins, this is Collins' shop.
Colin McMaster, a rally legend in his own right. Then we have, you know, special one-off projects like this thing we did at Swing Arm City in Utah.
This is your shop.
Yeah, this is my photo. This is the second time that we went here and shot on this level. And I mean, what a crazy thing to see Ken go up the face of this rock and pull the handbrake, seeing nothing but sky.
So cool.
You know, then we have Randy's Donuts, a Mike Blayback photo.
So this is a portrait of us, actually. See, look, I'm right there. You see me in my little hat.
I see your hat. Dude, that's amazing. I think I might have been, in this scene, I think I'm inside this building launching the Raptor Tracks video. Because while we were filming this, we launched Raptor Tracks at Baldface. So I'm on a laptop somewhere in there. But yeah, Blayback always got the scissor lift for some reason. You know, how did that happen? He always got the scissor lift. This, you know, we had to pick something from the early days. This was one of those pivotal moments of what changed Ken from just a race car driver, like a gentleman racer, to who he was. So this is Snow Park, New Zealand, 2007, I believe. That was his Group N car that he was racing in Rally New Zealand, and he took it to this mountain resort to make this film. Tim Zimmerman photo, absolutely insane moment. And then, again, the legend, Mike Blayback, Gymkhana 8 in Dubai.
You remember the crazy, annoying noise?
Yes.
The fan blade made. Yes.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
So, this was a very early retired 747, and because it was windy that day, the wind would go through the fan blades of these engines.
Yep. And when they were cold, there's like a tolerance that isn't there because they're made to expand, and they would clink so loud, and we're just sitting there trying to have lunch like, oh my God, that's so loud. It's so loud.
Yeah, and my photo from this was more of an overall shot. I was in the helicopter, and we were shooting it from above.
Yeah.
It was just such a cool scene.
Yeah.
So let's talk about these cars here.
Yeah. So the cars, you know, it's a mix of what we're able to pull together and also telling a story across all the different things Ken did. I actually kind of love having these two together right here because Gymkhana 2 car, if you look at it, it's just a street car that was built into a race car, but still like super, super basic. I mean, yeah, there's car builds going around right now that, you know, haven't been featured anywhere ever that are essentially on this level, you know, but at the time, nobody was really building Subarus like this or definitely making videos like that. So it's cool to have this still with some of the battle scars. I mean, if you watch that video, you have, I think they called him Timmy the Testy, the dummy, when Ken hit his arm. This to me was that early phase of what got me really, really into what Ken was doing. And then right next to it, you go from homebrew, like really simple car, to this, which was Audi Sport. The guys that build Dakar vehicles, rally cars, Formula E, they made a one-off race car just for Ken, and this is it. Like, they were pulling engineers off of the Formula E team, using those parts and putting them onto this car. Like, what a crazy evolution.
A couple of things I wanted to point out about this car that it may not translate. While the driveline was quiet, the tire noise was
Unreal.
so loud, I still had to wear earplugs.
Between that and like the kind of gear noises that were going on, because it does have like kind of a geared wheel setup, this thing was loud.
It was so loud. That's probably thanks to the Borla exhaust.
Oh yes, yeah. The Borla exhaust, that's right, yeah, somewhere.
No, well, you know what's funny is also Ken, the way he had to sit in this.
Dude, that was mind-blowing. So I don't remember how to open this door. That's okay, we'll leave it because, you know, sensitive race car. But essentially, you're laying down like this.
What's crazy is I feel like he would lose the blood in his feet because the feet were above where your heart was. Or like you were basically like a space shuttle. You were sitting down.
And not only that, when he was doing the donuts, like imagine having a vehicle that you put in 6th gear at a standstill and then you mash the throttle, and all 4 tires light up and spin. The G-forces that he had on donuts were just next level.
I know one challenge that Ken had, we were both there when he was going through this, was not being able to pick the right speed in the corner to get the car to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah, essentially when you're drifting and you're locked into a gear, you hear a drift car on the limiter, they know that they're capped at the wheel speed of whatever that gear's in. This car, especially its first iteration, it has no gears. So traditionally, you go through a right-hander, let's say it's a 3rd gear corner, you leave it in 3rd, you mash it, and that's where it goes. If you power shift to 4th, you're gonna spin. Here, you don't have that option. You have to go through, and just the lightest feathering of throttle is your wheel speed control. And to try and do that kind of stuff with this car was near impossible. So in Mexico, we actually put simulated gears in to help.
But that's where simulated gears will actually be very helpful, right? But it's funny because it's like zero wheel speed to 150. Like that. Can you imagine that? It's insane. Amazing. Plus you're laying down, there's so much front on this thing, it's crazy. But it does look cool. It does look really cool. And then we have Kazi V2. This thing was a really, really special car because, when Ken started watching rally, it was Group B, but the Group B transitioned into Group A. And what's more iconic of a Group A car than the Escort Cosworth with the crazy wing on the back? So Ken wanted, obviously, his own Kazi rally car, which he campaigned for a little bit. That car set on fire, completely totaled. He's like, well, I'm not just gonna rebuild the same thing again. I might as well build my vision of what I want this Kazi to be. So we worked with Ash Thorpe, who was an incredible 3D artist, CGI guy, worked on a ton of different films, Blade Runner namely, and he said, hey, let's make a car together, let's design this. So Ash, along with Ken, designed this one-off kit that you see here, the wide body, the fenders, everything you see here, Ken and Ash made together, and then brought it to life. This thing is so cool. It just looked so good. And it sounds cool, like it's still the old school YB engine. We upgraded the gearbox, the original one was the 7-speed, but. The thing that Ken did that was so special was the aesthetic part of cars, rally. I mean, it's one thing to have the power and the mechanical performance, but they all looked good and they were so iconic. Everyone, that was almost more important than the performance. Yeah, it was balancing that, right? Because when we entered the automotive space, you had all the performance stuff, you had all those things, but he brought that skate style and attitude in of like, your skateboard, your apparel, everything has to look a certain way. Motocross too. That really, really translated to having fun with the car. Having fun was as important as going fast. You really know that somebody did a good job in terms of designing a livery and creating an iconic livery when you see versions of it on the street. Yeah. Like inspirations, copies. Think about the best liveries that we like. Yeah. Golf livery, right? John Player Special, all those Jägermeister. And then you look at these, same thing. They're just so iconic. They've become more than what the car it originally came on was. Absolutely. Like it became legendary. Yeah. And beyond cars, kids were putting it on bikes, paintball guns, chainsaw, like anything you could think of. Like the drip pattern alone, I saw on so many different things. And that's, like you said, you make a really good point. It's like that's the highest compliment. So many people connected with that so much that they wanted to put it on whatever they could. And we'll come to the most iconic car I feel like Ken has ever done. And now it's back in this livery. I literally just saw it and it was in like a different livery. Mm-hmm. It was in like a brownish. Yep. So the last livery that you saw it in was from Unicorn vs. the World 2. That was Leah's livery. So we kind of took similarities, all with Death Spray Custom. We took similar styles from the Unicorn, but made it Leah's. So we had a little bronze key line, white wheels. We had the 00, and it was a very heavy Hoonigan branded car.
But for this exhibit, being a Ken exhibit, we were like, what's, the most iconic thing that we can kind of backdate this to? You would think it was Pikes Peak, but we didn't actually love that livery. So this is how it was in Gymkhana 10.
So then you went back and essentially restored it to that.
Yeah, with the actual guy, Marcus Jurgensen, who, Marcus goes all the way back to the very first 2 liveries. Marcus installed that wrap on the Subaru, on the first Subaru. It's Brian Scotto's homie from New York. They started out just doing skateboard and snowboard graphics, and Marcus still to this day hand installs every livery on any of Ken's cars we do.
That is so cool. To be honest, for me, the one that's the most iconic is the Gym 7, the release of the car. You saw it for a while leading up to the filming, but I saw it for the first time
on set,
uncompleted, the day before we started filming at the old Hoonigan donut shop.
Yep. And
most of the livery wasn't put on, a lot of the body parts weren't put on, but Ken did get in it, and he drove on the street to an undisclosed location down the street.
To just rip a donut.
Just to rip donuts.
The first time with body panels. That's the crazy thing, and I would love for more people to know and understand that, is the first scene we shot in Gymkhana 7, which was in Chinatown, with unmovable park benches and concrete poles. Ken had a total of maybe 2.5 miles of seat time in that car. In this thing, that's crazy. And he was putting it on the line every time.
The thing that I have to say about this car, up until this point in my career shooting cars, I've never seen a car move that way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I never seen, and it kind of got into the title, right? Wild and Out in the Streets.
Yes. Yeah.
It was just so violent, the way it destroyed the tires, and it was just so dynamic, the way it moved. It had a 3D movement, even though it was on a 2D plane.
Yep. Absolutely. And seeing a 65 Mustang move in that kind of way, this was absolutely a SEMA level build, but driven in the way that, a missile car would almost be driven. That was kind of the magical part of that mix was, we had this insane build, but Ken was not afraid to drive it to its absolute limit.
It makes me wonder, this is the one that I feel like he drove the most for filming. It's gotta be. He just had so much seat time behind it.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder how many tires this has gone through,
Dude.
There's just no way to know.
Yeah. That'd be a great stat to know. Or not, I don't know.
Yeah. Right here we have one of the iconic shots of the scene. Just so cool.
The Lolo, the highest risk moment. Again, we didn't really have spares for this thing. And that Lolo was going up and down in kind of an unpredictable way.
I love that they photoshopped out.
Can I show you a little secret?
What?
So when I gave them this file, we were like, they didn't say anything. There's the S-bomb here, F-bomb there.
Yeah.
You see this little seam? That's the photoshopped over seam. You got to come see it in real life to really pay attention to that. But Easter egg for anyone that comes here. Yeah, they printed the whole thing, and then you see just that little bit.
Oh, because they printed it with the F-bomb and stuff.
Removed. Underneath here, you have...
It actually says it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. So they printed another thing to go over it.
Shout out to Big John.
I love it.
Big John Hangy. He hopped the ever-loving life out of that car.
Well, to the point where the bumpers fell off.
The bumpers fell off, a headlight fell off.
A bunch of stuff fell off.
So here we made a box kind of commemorating Gymkhana 7, to give people really a feel. This was the first Gymkhana we made where it was no race suit. So we had street shoes, we had a leather jacket, a bandana, a moto-style helmet and goggles, which was kind of a cool departure from it being so race spec to kind of feeling more like a bullet kind of.
And that's the actual intake.
That's the actual intake, yep. So when we moved from NA to turbo, this came off. And this lived on the conference room table at Hoonigan for the longest time.
Yeah, so that's one of the main reasons why I'm saying for people to come here and see it in person, because first of all, the jacket is just hung up at the office, just on a clothes rack.
Yeah.
And then that was just an ornament in the conference room. Yeah, so for people to see it in person, it's just a good opportunity.
Again, who knows when, if ever, this will be on display again. I mean, this goes right back to the family, right back to the headquarters, which isn't open for the public.
Let's check out the ink care wall. So this is really interesting to me because this was such a highlight for me every time I went to headquarters.
Yeah.
I liked seeing all the parts that have gathered, and I also liked seeing, where I was if I had a chance to witness them in person.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you probably were there for pretty much every one of these.
Every one of these, yeah. Again, an incredible thing, and what a vision for Ken to have of just to come up with, hey, I want a wall of all the things that I've broken in like an epic way, and then put the ethos of it behind. So on the subject of the Gymkhana 7, this pretzel drive shaft right here was from the Randy's Donuts scene. Remember, we were down for a little bit. We had to get a guy from Canada to fly parts in his carry-on baggage.
It was 2 different surfaces, right? I think it hopped off the curb.
Yep, off of the sidewalk, and from the sidewalk off the curb and onto the street. And that gap moment, so much torque that twisted the drive shaft.
It's funny because a lot of people don't realize how anything can go wrong at any moment, and how fragile these cars, and how many possibilities could come out of us filming this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because we were there so many times where it's like literally this one thing holding the entire production back.
Whole production.
Whether it be car caught on fire and they have to redo the wrap, or this, that, and the other, like on Gym 8.
Yep.
Right? Or
Ken got a puncture early on in the stage. That could be anything from a nail, a rock, an impact, whatever. He did the rest of the stage on this wheel. So the tire disintegrates, you get a chunk taken out, and Ken was like, hey, M-Sport, let me take that wheel back home. I love that. Like, you're on 3 wheels, you're on 2 wheels, whatever.
My favorite thing was seeing him in transit, stuck in traffic, in Spain, in Catalonia, and it's just like, he's just like blends in with traffic.
Yeah.
Or if we're on the highway, he's just rolling around, we're yelling at him, waving at him, taking pictures, video, and he's just cruising along.
That's one of the coolest things about the WRC. Every race car is plated and street driven from stage to stage.
Real quick, going back to the story about things holding in production, I don't know if you remember this. On Gymkhana 10, I don't know if I've told this story before, but something was happening with the Cosworth in the diff where it broke. I think it broke apart, and then something with the LSD, they needed a bunch of bolts. And it was in the middle of the night, and we were filming Gymkhana 10. I literally reached out to my buddy who has an Alfa Romeo shop in LA, and I asked him, hey, do you have these bolts? They're very specific. He's like, he like sent me a picture. He had 4.
Yeah.
I think the team needed 2 to get the car running.
Let's just bring them all.
I Ubered those bolts to production so they can get the car running. And it was this guy who did not know how to speak English. He just spoke Mandarin. He had no idea this thing that he was delivering would move $1 million production forward.
Save $200,000 worth of a shoot day or whatever it is.
It's funny because, and then he looked at me, he gave me the package, and he's like, you're gonna leave a good review in Mandarin, right? And I was like, of course, I'll leave you a really good review.
The other part, Gymkhana 10 was such a struggle.
Yeah.
Remember, we broke a steering rack on the Kazi.
Yes.
And it was our second one that we had broken. And it's a Ford Escort Cosworth. There are no more steering racks, or so we thought. Scotto brings up on Craigslist a Merkur XR4 Ti that he was looking to buy anyway. And we call this guy. We're like, hey, man, we want to buy your car. He's like, yeah, I could see you on the weekend. Or we're like, you need to leave work right now, and we'll buy your car. He's like, I'm not leaving work. Like, we'll pay you double. He's like, I'm there. He shows up. The car is still running. The whole mechanic crew has the front end of the car lifted up already, both of the wheels off, subframes coming down, steering rack. The dude hasn't even been paid yet. His whole front end is completely apart. And right there on site, we swapped the steering rack and finished the film before the guy left. It was insane, the stuff we had to do to finish these films.
I remember that car was at Hoonigan for the longest time.
Oh, the red one. Yeah. Scotto still has it.
Oh, really?
It's at his farm.
Dude, that's so
You
sick.
should go film with him at his farm.
That's so sick.
So, I mean, come on. Ford RS200, and in typical Ken style, this wasn't just any RS200. This one had an Evo motor, one of 25, 2.1 liter Evolution engine in the back. Car has a really interesting history. It was in Norway, owned by a famous rallycross driver named Tor Holm. He built it to very specific ways with Julian Godfrey, another legendary guy in the RS200 world. Ken just wanted a really, really sick street car. This was his hero car, his favorite, next to the Group B Quattro, of course, one of his favorite vehicles ever. So he had to have his own street version. So here you have it, 700 horsepower, sequential transmission. In its later days, we worked with KW Suspension to do the double coilovers. If you kind of look through here, back in the day, a lot of these cars had a dual suspension setup because dampers weren't that advanced back then to be able to have high speed and low speed and bypass and all that. So you had your different shock speeds in a different shock. They didn't drive that great. So KW made us a custom setup, 8 coilovers for one car. It was a really cool thing. Drove great after that.
He was always so humble in that. I remember we would always be driving around and next to us would be some guy with a Ken hat or sunglasses or some apparel. I think you and I would always joke like, what if Ken just rolls down his window and the guy just turns around and is like, oh my God, it's Ken Block. You know, it's just like so random.
So random. I mean, you would see it. And the ironic part of it is that Ken was actually a pretty introverted guy. He had a small circle of people around him. He had this big, wild character, but that wasn't like, I don't want to say it was fake, but it deep down, you know, he kept his circle tight. So it meant that much more when he spent that much time with fans or someone random that came up with him during a dinner or whatever. He understood the value in that like, someone really connected and enjoyed what he did. So yeah, of course, the least he could do is sign an autograph. Yeah, so what we were trying to accomplish with this side of the container, which is not an actual shipping container, if you could believe that. Those are way too heavy. They're super tough to work with. We actually recreated with one of the guys that did the Gymkhana sets.
Oh.
Matthew Holt.
Yep.
Him and his team, they did an incredible job reproducing this. So it's thin sheet metal on the side. It's molded plastic up top. It's MDF, but molded off of a real shipping container. This is pretty much what you would experience being at the Hoonigan Racing HQ in Utah. So on that side, you have the Ain't Care wall. Here, what we wanted to try and get across is when Ken did an artist collab for a livery, it went way beyond the car and the suit. The apparel, the one-off projects like this chair we did with Modernica, everything stemming from a hand-painted art piece by the artist himself. So this is, it's a living, Ricardo, incredible artist, does a ton of work. He's got a whole thing with Taco Bell now.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. But see how it carries over. This Death Spray, one of my favorite collabs we did.
This is the livery that was really hard for me to photograph because I always thought my photos were out of focus.
Or the registration's off.
Yeah, it just looks like it's, it has CA or the lens has some kind of shift.
Yep.
Yeah, but it was so.
Well, the inspiration came from 3D glasses, right? And we wanted to do this kind of 3D stereoscopic effect. And David Gweither, Death Spray, he works with car paint. He hand sprays a ton of stuff. And he always said to Ken, I've worked with you so much. You only ever make my stuff in vinyl. Let's paint some stuff. Let's do actual paint. So he made this jerry can right here. Again, hand-laid graphics, hand-painted. The fire bottle, a hood from a Fiesta Rallycross car, and of course the brain bucket helmet and the number board. So David's very, old school motorsport driven, so he also made this himself. It was cool to see kind of like that whole vision of a livery. And then here we have Philippe Pantone, who again, we started with hand-painted. Philippe painted those art pieces himself. That's kind of what inspired the rest of the entire collection. And then comes the suit, the helmet, all the way down to dog leashes. We have an Xbox somewhere kicking around here, the shoe, a specialized bike. Everything kind of trickles down from the art itself.
It's just so inspirational, and I can't think of anybody else who does this. Like, it was an event, like the livery and the collab for the year, it was an event.
Yeah.
And it was just something so grand, and it was so important, you know, versus like, all right, here's my new race car, you know, I just show up.
Yeah.
No, it was like everything leading up to it, and then you get excited to see it on course.
Yeah. And then you get to see this, the whole Pantone collection, the bike, the suit, the art, then you turn around, there you have it on the car itself. You see how it translates. And anytime we made these liveries, the way these come together, I'll never forget. I was sitting there right next to Ken when we were making the 2012 livery. And he's looking at different lines, like the key line on the hood, the side marker, the colors, different patterns, like this stripe here. He was building it like he was building a shoe for DC. So he's like, okay, I need this kind of pop color, I need this kind of pattern, I need 2 more options on different things we could do for the underside of a hat, for a different kind of graphic. Everywhere you look across this are elements that could be used across apparel and art and posts and everything we do. It's not just how it lives on the car.
Maybe people don't realize is how hands-on he was with every little tiny detail.
Oh, dude, like.
I'm sure it was a little tough for you.
I swear, I think I have one email thread that's 65 emails deep about one Instagram post. The copy, the art, how it looks, how it plays out.
It was important to the point where it was like a thing.
Yeah.
Right? So I learned a lot about Instagram from what you guys did. It inspired a little bit of how I post and how I present myself. Mainly at that time period, it would Jared Deanda and I called it the KB bump.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so when you got the KB bump, that's when Ken posts or tags you.
Yep.
And the KB bump was crazy.
Your following.
It was significant. Yeah. It was like instant. Within a couple minutes, I would get 2,000, 3,000.
Even when he would, back in the day, he would just like your photo. And all of a sudden it would show up. Remember back in the day, Instagram would show who liked what?
Yeah.
If Ken liked one of my photos, it'd be like, boom, 30 new followers. I'm like, what? That's crazy.
The KB bump.
The KB bump was real. Yeah. It was real.
Yeah, this was super cool to photograph. This was a lot of fun to see slide around. This was a World RX.
That's correct. Yeah. So this was built in conjunction with M Sport and Ford for the FIA World Rallycross Championship. We also filmed Gymkhana 9 with it. But again, pretty cool. Like, if you think about from where we started, again, the 2 cars back to back, you have the Gymkhana 1 Subaru, which still has carpet in it, to this, where we're sitting in a room with M Sport engineers, and Ken is giving his driving input on how the engine is going to lay at a certain angle to lower the center of gravity. To go from that to that in a decade or less is like, it's a mind-boggling thing. Yeah, a bittersweet car, to be honest. It was really like an ultimate vision. You know, Ken and Pikes Peak went hand in hand. We filmed a video there. We did a lot of stuff there, but he never actually competed there. And he wanted the ultimate car to compete at Pikes Peak with, something that had a chance of taking the record. So we teamed up with BBI and went for this.
I first got an inkling of like the Ken's bigger picture when I was shooting with him at one point in Utah, and we were having a conversation where he basically said in so many words, like, I like Porsches too. I like so many other cars.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't actually know, because from the outside looking in, it was like Ford. But he's like, I'm a big Porsche guy.
Yeah, that's like when Rob Dyrdek left DC and he told us about his entire collection of Nikes. He would always buy. He had a closet full of them, but he could never wear them because he was DC dude.
Right.
It's the same thing with this. You know, when...
Oh my God. Guest appearance.
Wow. Photobombing the video.
I know, sorry.
What's up, dude? Good to see you. Did you finish it? Dang, look at that. Kira painted that herself.
Oh, that's awesome. It's your first time seeing this?
Yes.
You just got here.
I just got here. I just got here.
You were just in Europe.
Yeah.
You're
It's my
insane.
first time seeing this.
You know, for me, it's so cool to see what you're doing now. Like, it was so cool. So my first time seeing you actually race was in Abu Dhabi, just this last.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for the finals. Super cool, very, very inspiring. Very cool to see you out there.
It's definitely a different path than where we started.
So this is your first time?
Yeah.
You know,
No, it's awesome. It's so cool. So, I mean, now, like, what's next for you? Just stay the course?
Stay the course for now. I don't know. I think this year it's kind of like make or break. Kind of got to get P1 championship, or we got to go back, reconsider, see where else the path is going to take. But, you know.
But behind the wheel. Anyways.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
Perfect.
There's definitely no, like, I'm not just going to quit and go do, like, an office job.
Yeah.
This is my stuff.
Yeah, this is
There's
it.
no changing that.
I love
Just
it.
depends on what type of discipline.
Yeah.
Is it rally? Is it Formula One? Is it Rallycross? So
You know what makes me happy is you're inspiring so many young women.
I think it's so cool to see people come to the race, like girls or even just women of any ages, and like to see them at the races and to see that we are inspiring that is like, you know, makes the job 10 times better.
Yeah, and I think that's what we need more of. Young, strong women in motorsports, in car culture, to just push what we love.
Right.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, and it starts from that very, very young age. You know, it starts at the karting roots and from watching social media or with what your parents, you know, and that's when, right now we have that big opportunity to do it because we have social media today and you can just get the word out so much easier. So.
Amazing.
It's a big thing.
It's a big thing.
It's a
big-
thing.
It's a lot of work, though.
But it's a big change, I feel like, in the last 2 years and ongoing.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely flipped the switch on what's happening.
Well, now, and the big difference is why it's so much harder is like, now you have so much more noise. You have the groundwork laid out on how to do a lot of this stuff. So that means you have way more people doing way more stuff. You have incredible creators, Cletus McFarlane, Weston Champlin, Whistle and Diesel, like you have Adam LZ, you have all these guys doing incredible things and taking some of the building blocks that, you know, Ken kind of started out. You see that influence in what they're doing now. That makes it that much harder for, you know, kids like this to break through.
It's hard to stand out nowadays because
Yeah.
there's so many people doing, you know, have the ideas and see everything that's been done on social media. It's hard to find what hasn't been done and do it, you know, to make a name for yourself or to stand out like that.
Absolutely.
Are you going to get behind the wheel of this again?
I would love to. Like, it's just the question of what do we do with it, you know? It's a purpose built for Pikes Peak, but, you know, is it... We've had problems. Is it really going to make it if we try again? But who knows? I mean, we could do some donuts with it. I don't think it's ever done donuts, so.
Oh yeah, I think you can. I think you can get it to do donuts.
If anybody can, it's Leah. I mean, if anybody's seen the footage of when Leah got behind the wheel of this thing the first time ever, everybody's like, all right, Leah, here's how everything works, you know, get out there, take your time, you know, get used to the car. She's like, yeah, okay. And then she takes off and we're just, we're like,
Okay, well,
oh my God.
my version of taking it easy is maybe not your version of taking it.
Okay, wow, hard diss. We don't need that. We don't need that right up front. Okay.
You know,
Unnecessary roughness on the play.
I was
Jeez.
in my comfort zone.
You were. No, it's really impressive. You got in this thing and you went really, really impressive with it.
Listen, my favorite moment at the start line when you were doing your run. I point the camera at her through the front windshield, and she flicks me off like her dad.
We have an entire folder called Birds.
It's like
Yes.
my instinct. I see a camera and I
Yeah.
instantly want to
Yeah,
pick it up.
you know, like daughter, like father.
yeah.
But you know, it's funny because everyone else didn't know that was a thing, right?
Yeah.
Including Batim from BBI. He's like, "That's not nice."
Yeah.
He said, Leah, that's not nice.
It's not nice. And Larry's like,
Larry
"Aww."
I'm literally like bawling up.
You're happy.
Yeah, I'm like so happy.
It's all in love. It's
Yeah, exactly.
never the opposite.
It's also just instinct. You know, you just do it.
For those of you guys who don't know, Ken, one of his favorite things was to ruin our shots
yeah.
for fun, you know, because
For his own amusement.
basically he could be putting on a wheel, putting on his gloves, he could be suiting up, he could be doing whatever, he could be eating, and we're shooting pictures of him, and he'll just stick his finger out, and it'll be just so subtle.
Sometimes you wouldn't catch it.
Yo, I would only find a lot of them after the fact while I'm editing them, and I'm like, now I can't use this.
We made a whole collection of them. And it's like, where am I going to put these shots? I'm just going to have a whole folder of Ken giving us the middle finger.
I guess it might be a bit more acceptable nowadays.
I think so. I think we've moved to a time
Maybe
where
not
that's
for
okay.
me at this moment.
Yes.
but-
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, good to see you as always. Go check out the rest of the exhibit. Yeah.
First time seeing it.
Yeah, amazing. Enjoy it. So what we wanted to put together on this wall is, again, like, if you had to do an exhibit on Ken's whole life, it would take over this whole museum. Everything he did in action sports, everything even pre-DC and snowboarding, and even outside of cars. This is Ken's car timeline, but we wanted to give people an idea of the highlights, the moments, really important things like doing big artist collabs like Philippe Pantone, building the Unicorn, Gymkhana Grid as a series, the 1552 Turbo Mac, a wheel that was on sale that Ken helped design with the 5.2 crew. Gymkhana 4 poster, we got our gold handbrake. The drip livery gets its whole own treatment because of how game-changing that was for us.
You cannot go into any city, I feel like, in Europe, Eastern Europe, without seeing a replica.
Or at least some version of it. Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, starting his own team, I'm going backwards on this timeline, but you get the idea. You know, making the Pro Spec shoe, a racing shoe, FIA certified, that was skate inspired. I mean, look at this thing. Like, people still to this day are trying to find Pro Specs on eBay because they are FIA certified and you can run them.
You were running one of Ken's shoes, like
Yes.
one of his actual shoes.
One of the actual Pro Spec 3s, I ran that at Pikes Peak last year. Yeah, that was from like the last batch that was made.
That is so cool.
Big shout out to Lucy for giving me a pair of those. Incredible. So yeah, we wanted to tell the story of like, you know, where all this inspiration comes from, where all these ideas come from. I mean, you probably just saw this at the headquarters not that long ago.
This was such a epic time, epic moment.
Such a crazy thing to podium with Sebastian Loeb at that point in his career. You know, and then we have all the rally stuff, the early DC stuff, gumball cars. You know, when this came on the scene, it was like a game changer, you know? And you look at this, where we start the timeline, you look at Ken here. He had already like started DC Shoes, this game-changing brand in action sports, and, you know, had 8-Ball and working on Blunt magazine, and it's just like to start here and then have all that. What a crazy thing.
So this car, Gymkhana one, this is the one that started it all.
So, dude, this car, if you want to talk about Ken's pivot from being a gentleman racer, just an enthusiast, to being part of that whole cultural shift, this car was such a big part of that, man. Like, so it's a 05 STI, which the front face doesn't say 05. It got facelifted later on. But this is a car that he did one lap of America. He did the Gumball Rally. And the same chassis he then upgraded to compete in something called Gymkhana USA, which was the Gymkhana series, which I think you took part in.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, you drove in your Z.
This is the only car of Ken's that I raced
Against. That's amazing.
How funny is that?
That's really, yeah, that's
I mean, race is a loose term because I got smoked so bad. But what was fun for me was that I was a part of the same competition.
Yeah.
You know, this is a man who's competing in grassroots events.
2005, that's what he was doing. He was just entering whatever he could. And so he built this car essentially for Gymkhana racing because he wanted more seat time that was cheaper than bringing out the whole Vermont sports car rally team. And then that series ended. It shuttered. It was over. And he has his car. So, you know, in Ken's mind, he's like, let's make like a skate video with this thing. So they went to El Toro, they filmed what's now known as Gymkhana practice, and the rest is history. And the car still is as is.
A couple things that really stood out to me about that video, it just really changed the game for so many people, right? One thing that really stood out to me was the all-wheel drift because at that point, I've already shot so much drifting. I've been around Formula Drift, D1, all that. But I've just never seen an all-wheel drive car do what this car did. Like going around the building, and it's like changing direction so quick.
And like almost backwards entering everything because the front wheels can pull you out. Yeah, it was a mind-blowing thing. So from my side as a rally fan, rally cars move that way, but if you're getting that sideways and you're sliding that much, you're losing time. You're not going fast. But, you know, if somebody overcooked a corner or they're trying to show off in like a spectator part of the stage, they're doing donuts, you would get little pieces, little hints. If Colin McRae won a rally, he would rip donuts in Parc Fermé. This was the concentrated version of every one of those moments that Ken saw in one video. And so for people to get all that at once was such a cool thing in an all-wheel drive car. I mean, look at this thing inside.
It's like a stock car.
There's no cage. It's got carpet. It's got fully stock dash. It's got stock shift knob. Like, it keys on with a normal, like, it's so street car.
I reached out to Crawford Performance after Ken passed, and I asked them if they had the original footage on tape of me and him at the Christmas tree. Back then, YouTube was so unreliable.
And so low res.
Yeah, and so low res. If you uploaded something, it would glitch out, you know, like a DivX glitch, if you know what I'm talking about. Like it would like turn green or, yeah. And I reached out to Crawford Performance. I'm like, just asking if they potentially have the tapes anywhere, and they haven't been able to find them. It sucks that that existed at one point, you know, and some random guy from Crawford Performance on like a handy cam, like a small little tiny handy.
Whatever was the latest tech at the time.
But I could tell that it was shot on tape. You know, because I had my Canon tape GL2 there, and I was shooting video on tape there at that event with my friends, because that's just what we did. On the weekends, we would go to
GoPros didn't even exist.
No. We went to El Toro, we went to Willow Springs, California Speedway. We went to all these places to do Gymkhana practice, Gymkhana, American Gymkhana, whatever.
Whatever it was at the time.
Yeah, so like that was our place that we did motorsports, you know? So seeing Ken there, which by the way, he didn't have the bumper on when he lined up next to me, and it was so intimidating. We're talking about a car that had 4 times the horsepower.
And it was loud. This thing's pretty much straight piped.
Oh, it was so cool. So cool. It was just one of those moments in time, you know?
Yeah, very much so. And seeing this, I mean, this is the car that, you know, put me on Ken. Like, it was like, who is this dude doing this incredible stuff in a car that I idolized at the time? Like, to see it in person, to have it be on the same exact wheels, like, it's so cool.
The Segway also moment of like, oh my God.
Legendary.
Like,
because Segways at the time were like a thing, you know? And so to have him doing donuts around one.
Oh, it was so cool to see. And it really just changed the game.
Yeah.
I love, my favorite comment from Scotto about the Gymkhana practice was that this video starts as seen in 0 to 60 magazine.
0 to 60 magazine. Again, going back to like...
Because magazine was bigger than video, just like how you're saying blog was the biggest thing.
And then, you know, things shift. Media shifts all the time. I mean, you think about Facebook. It used to be just about single photo and a caption. Then galleries. Galleries changed the thing. And then video on Facebook kind of fell on its face. And then YouTube, man, we would post a practice video to YouTube and get 1 million views. So back then it was so much easier, you know? It changes so much. It's cool to see where it's come from and where it's going.
Well, there's a lot of other things that we didn't get into, like a lot of the video displays, and I think you guys recorded a bunch of stuff specifically for this.
Oh yeah, I mean, everything you see here, we've edited its own videos. I sat with Scotto in his podcast studio to do the whole voiceover of this whole thing. We put a lot here together. There's tons of details. There's little things hanging on every single thing telling these stories and more. So if you can, please come check it out, experience it in person. It's unbelievable. I want to say it's worth your while, and even if it's not, there's a whole bunch of other stuff in the museum too.
Well, yeah, the whole entire museum is cool, but there's just a lot of stuff that you won't see anywhere else.
That's right.
All the stuff that you guys created. So let's talk about the legacy a little bit. One of the things, I got a comment from somebody today, like how they can support 43i.
So 43i, what we're doing with that is taking everything that Ken did, all the connections that he made, all the influence that he had, and we're trying to distill that to kids who may not have the opportunity to do this kind of stuff. So anything from getting helmets to kids that are doing action sports and they don't necessarily have the budget for one, to putting people in touch with artists that they have the talent, they may just not have the connections or the way to do it. We're making all these connections happen through 43i. So this link right here, you could hit that, and we've got things going on all year. Right now, we got an auction going until Thursday for this event. We have 4-3 Day coming up, so if you do want to come out here, April 5th, because it's a Friday, come out and check that out. And yeah, all year round, follow 43i on Instagram.
And then I'll just fill you guys in again on what I'm doing with 43i right now. We've done so many things since it became an organization. I sold myself. I don't know if you remember that. for 8 hours.
I do, yeah, thank
and
you,
I can't believe for 8 hours it went for $70,000. So super happy to do that kind of stuff. But right now we're doing something special. We're doing a giveaway car with 000 magazine.
For a good cause, and it's the ability to put somebody behind the wheel of one of these cars that, again, maybe they would never have the chance to have a car like that.
Exactly. So 000 magazine giving away the craziest car. Turbo S, full 000 package on it. Probably the craziest street car you can buy.
But very much a street car that you could do your groceries in too.
Exactly. So then you can win that if you go to 000magazine.com, buy whatever, buy magazine subscriptions, one-off covers that I've done. There's a bunch of posters of the Hunapig there for sale, merch, other stuff. If you don't want to just donate money to 43i and you want to buy something, definitely do that. There's a chance that you could win this Turbo S, which is so cool. And moving forward, you know, I'm going to do so much more. You know, after this giveaway project is over, I'm still going to continue to do whatever I can to help this legacy that, you know, Ken helped us.
He did, man.
Yeah.
I have so much of my career thanks to Ken. A lot of us do. So many of us do. So it's our way of giving back.
Exactly. It's our way of giving back. It's just a little thing that we can do, and we'll all play our part, and you know, we'll just have fun with it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Larry. You're a real one.
Dude, thank you so much for walking us through this.
Dude, it was my pleasure. It's been amazing going down memory lane and, you know, seeing all these cars and all the photos off the hard drive and talking to you. It's crazy to be here at this point, you know. Yeah. We got a thing in the Petersen.
It's incredible.
Yeah.